This is Terms of Reference podcast number 179.
We developed the first of its kind. It's a meter that sits on top of the propane tanks and basically allows for people to just pay for the use. I mean, they can pay $1, $2, whatever quantity they need. And in that price, basically they are paying back for that infrastructure. So we are basically financing them to have their first cylinder, the first stove.
This is Terms of Reference. I'm your host, Stephen Leddick. I take for granted that I can walk away from this microphone right now, head over to my kitchen and turn on my stove to boil water, bake a cake, or cook myself a meal. And I don't even have to think about the fact that I have hot water available on demand at any time of the day. I just turn on the tap and it's there. This is not the case for millions and millions of people throughout the world. In fact, there's a huge portion of the human population that still relies on burning wood or charcoal for cooking and cleaning. This dependence is a massive time suck away from other productive tasks and, as we've heard in other episodes, a considerable health risk. My guest for the 179th Terms of Reference podcast has a better idea that he hopes will end the use of charcoal. Dr. Sebastian Rodriguez-Sanchez is the CEO and co-founder of KopaGas, a technology solutions provider of advanced metering infrastructure for energy utilities. KopaGas has developed and deployed the first commercial pay-as-you-cook platform for propane. I'm positive you'll love this episode where Sebastian and I discuss why propane is a powerful replacement for charcoal, how he and his company sell and manage their smart meter system, and what it takes for a family to make the change to gas, and much, much more. I spoke with Sebastian in Dar es Salaam. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsor.
The Terms of Reference podcast is sponsored by International Solutions Group, helping to improve the social impact of governments, UN agencies, NGOs, and companies for more than 10 years. Visit ISG online at www.theisg.com.
Hello, Sebastian. Thank you so much for being on the Terms of Reference podcast today.
Thank you, Stephen. Pleased to be here.
Sebastian, where do we find you sitting today?
Today we are in the office of KopaGas in Masaki area in Dar es Salaam. It's quite cloudy today. It's been raining quite a lot.
Excellent. We're actually having this conversation on Halloween. I mean, of course, I'm an American, so that's an important holiday to me. And so what is this the rainy season in Dar es Salaam?
Yeah, the onset. It's been a lot of rain, and actually the city gets very disturbed by it. So difficult for our operation, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, and we're excited to hear about that. But a nice little segue for us. You are the CEO and co-founder of an organization, a company called KopaGas. And as we usually do, why don't we start by you telling us about what KopaGas does and why it's so interesting?
Right. So we're a tech company. We also are a logistics company. We are working on energy and specifically to cooking energy. We distribute cooking gas, which for many of your audience, they may know it as propane or butane, depending on where you live in the world. But it's really a bottle gas that comes in these cylinders. It's a very nice form of energy for cooking because you can put a lot of it in one bottle and it's very easy to transport and many people use it around the world. The issue we're tackling is that countries in sub-Saharan Africa, they don't have access to that infrastructure and they are really cooking with charcoal and biomass, and it has very bad consequences for the environment, for their health, even for their economy. It's very expensive here in Dar es Salaam to cook with charcoal every day. So gas can be 20-30% cheaper, but most of the issues are infrastructure and affordability.
So how important is propane in Tanzania? I mean, are you 1% of the market? Are you 20% of the market? Is this something where everybody knows that they want to have it? And like, it's this thing where there's a clamor for it, or is it, you're really trying to sort of crack into the market?
Yeah, it's very early days of the market, really. We estimate that only 5% of the population has access to it and is constantly user of gas. Most of them here in Dar es Salaam. I mean, so most of the rural areas, they never seen it, never use it. Hence, they are buying charcoal and wood. Some people go directly to chop some trees and so on, but they're paying expensive for that energy. So in general, families spend a large percentage of their income on cooking energy. It could be something between 15 to 20% of their income. And so it's really a very hidden need, a very basic need, because everyone needs to cook and eat. And also there's no awareness of how it's done. I mean, really, the only thing that has been not changing is this cooking with charcoal and wood. So yeah, it's very early days in the access to it, even though worldwide it's very available and can be very efficient way to change people to this more efficient energy. Mm-hmm. So even though it's a fossil fuel, when you use it, you basically don't release any pollutant. It's really clean and fast. Whereas the charcoal that most of the people use in major cities in Africa really comes from a very bad practices of chopping trees, doing a bad, inefficient process to transform it into charcoal, and then a lot of distribution to bring it to the cities. So just to give you an example, like a family here can spend at least $1 a day just for the cooking needs in charcoal. And it's a lot of money for them.
So you introduced KopaGas as a tech and logistics company, which I love because we're here, the last 5 minutes we've just been talking about gas, but that wasn't even on your radar when you introduced the company. So what is it that, and I'm sitting here staring at your webpage right now and there's a giant picture of an LPG smart meter.
Correct.
What's the point of that? I mean, I live in Bangkok. I see guys driving around with motorcycles with, propane tanks on the back of their motorcycles, delivering it to different places or whatever. Like, how are you breaking that model?
So the main issue we found here in Sub-Saharan Africa is that people really want to use things and they can afford things if they can be sliced in small shops. I mean, if you pay for the daily use of, in this case, of gas, and you don't need to pay upfront for the infrastructure. I mean, when you switch from charcoal to gas, you need to buy a cylinder, one stove, and accessories to really make it work. So it can be a big expense, something around $80 to $100. So it's really like a month worth of salary.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like a month worth of salary. Okay, I just put that in real terms. Okay.
Yeah, in real terms. So this is something average people, middle and low income households, they want to do, but they cannot do it really. I mean, they don't have the cash savings and the liquidity to do that. So we really the company comes also from a background in electrification, and this big thing that is happening with off-grid solar, really like that you can allow incremental payments towards that infrastructure, is what we are doing with KopaGas. Basically, we developed the first of its kind. It's a meter that sits on top of the propane tanks and basically allows for people to just pay for the use. I mean, they can pay $1, $2, whatever quantity they need. And in that price, basically they are paying back for that infrastructure. So we are basically financing them to have their first cylinder, the first stove. And for us, it's a win because we capture that customer and also we serve them better, basically, because this device is connected and people can pay us by mobile money that is very ubiquitous here in East Africa.
Mm-hmm. What's a sale like? Look for you. Do you have a storefront? Do you have representatives that go around? Or I'm just wondering if I'm somebody living in Dar es Salaam and I'm usually using charcoal or something. Like, how do you convince me to turn to this? Like, what's your process?
So we actually have two business, and I can go into that. But the main pay-as-you-go business, and with that we call pay-as-you-cook, starts like this. So we partner with women's organizations in the city. I mean, they are very well organized groups, and to introduce the concept, and people really, first they need to know that propane is cheaper than charcoal. So we do a lot of demonstration to these groups. So people are convinced that really is a better deal, is faster, and you don't have these issues that some people may raise, like food tastes different because it's not charcoal and so on. So all this kind of introduction to the technology happens in groups, and especially women that are the ones dealing with that. And then we do use those groups as a form of security because, they have some history of those members. And what we ask them is to do a small down payment, which is around $10. And with that, basically, we deliver to their houses the cylinder, the stove, and the small accessories to connect, like the pipes. And we do a training on safety and how to pay using more money. So as people start using it, then they really know how to do the more money payments, because it's very impressive. In these places, you have electricity and water already being paid. prepaid basically by mobile wallets. So it's not difficult for them. So what we observe in this model is that people start using more gas as they feel more happy with the technology, and also as they switch their behaviors. Like a couple of things is like observations that we've seen from our customers is that in the past, because cooking with charcoal was very difficult. I mean, it's very troublesome to start a fire and all that. Mm-hmm. They cook a lot, and they cook like for several meals, basically.
Right.
Whereas with gas, you do like a small, faster meals, like small sizes. So they actually cook more varied. I mean, they do different meals. So that's also these benefits of being very fast.
Wow. Have you documented that in any way? Like proven that's the first time I've ever heard that one, but it makes total logical sense. Once turning the power on and off or the gas on and off is simple, that you're going to introduce more variety. You're going to be more spontaneous. You're going to choose to create smaller meals. Have you started to gather that kind of data from your customers?
So these are of course, focus groups and information. We are working with Impact Fund that is documenting all this behavior as well. So more information will be publicly available very soon. But it's really kind of a very good thing. I mean, in general terms, propane or LPG, as is known formally, is really fueling the houses of more than 2 billion people. Like I'm from Latin America, and all Latin America use this kind of technology. It's very convenient. So I don't have doubt that will be the fuel of choice for at least for urban areas in Africa, which is a big part of the population as well.
Do you find that when somebody makes the choice to sign on, they're hooked, they don't leave? Like, what's your retention rate?
At this point is 100%. I mean, we do have more demand than we can really sustain from the company, because for the company we need to basically finance upfront all this cost. So I mentioned we have also another business line where we just sell wholesale gas to small retailers, and actually that's the way we make money at this point. But the key thing is that it's a big improvement in the quality of lifestyle. I mean, when you look at the places where they were cooking before, generally it's outside their small house, and here in the city the size of the house is limited. So like it's a place that used to be smoky, very very bad, so no one really wants to have that cooking space. Whereas with the gas, actually they bring it inside the house because it's clean, and they treat it like a TV or a high-value appliance. And especially women are really interested in this, because it really are the cookers basically in the house. A big challenge has been to convince men within the household to really allocate budget for this, and that's something we are studying really, how to keep adding some elements to improve the use of gas. So, of course, they won't switch to 100% from day one, but it's a transition. But most of our customers are maybe replacing 70 to 80% of their cooking with gas.
What's the pushback for men? I mean, obviously this is me being, the American that I am once again, just saying, of course, it's obvious. I go to my kitchen and I can turn it on and it works. Is there obvious reasons for pushback? I mean, other than just sort of, this is something new, or, and it's a technology maybe they are comfortable with in their home, those kinds of things, or are there other bigger reasons that I'm not understanding?
Well, it's that part of the technology being new, and also the entrenched behavior that, like charcoal has been forever in the mindset. And that's like, so at least they kind of internalize the cost of it. So for us, the initial pilots that we have run, it really was difficult to get that amount of gas, the payments they need to do to chop that in small amounts. So people in our system can pay the minimum they can pay 20 cents a day. So just because the transfer fees, we absorb all that. So it's a lot of extra costs on our end. But really tailoring that small payment, so that negotiation that goes inside the household about the budgets, energy budgets, is easy to convince. I mean, is there basically from the point of view of men, is it's the same money we were spending before, it's even better quality and so on. We have even stories from head of households, men, that say, well, now I can really take a hot, warm shower, or just boiling some water to have a bath. And that's really a key selling point for them. Because before it's really we may need to wake up 5 a.m, put the water, and so the husband can go to work at 6. So also the time savings is key. I mean, the convenience is key. I mean, people in cities here. I mean, they work a long hours, so they need to save time.
I'm really interested in this just because one of the reasons why I'm kind of continuing to pick at this particular subject is because we hear so often, not only in the development world, sort of the social sector, but also just around entrepreneurship and startups in general. It's like, well, of course people are going to buy this because, everybody needs this. This is so obvious. And yet, you're saying, you're enumerating, you're listing down all of these things where, we've got time savings, we've got budget savings, we've got, health benefits.
Right.
And how hard was it? Like, give me a sense, from sort of the time that you started or you and your co-founder, began KopaGas to the time when you really had a sales pitch that worked. Like, was it right out of the gate people started to see it, or was it months, or was it, has this been going on for a year and now it's starting to catch on, or?
The big advantage is that my co-founder is here from Tanzania, so he knows really this behavior because he experienced. He experienced. So actually, the idea of KopaGas came really where he used to have a very good salary and employment. So he was maybe like the 5% income.
So are you saying now that he doesn't have a good salary or an employment?
No.
I'm just playing.
He's rich in gas, but the big thing is that even himself with his high income, at some point during the months, he could buy upfront the cylinder and so on. But at some point he was with his wife, they were building a house, so the money was cash flow was difficult. Mm-hmm. The gas finished, and so his wife said, well, let's refill it. And he said, well, maybe wait like next week until the paycheck comes. And then this was really what triggered some of the issue. Like, he was thinking, even for his income level, this is an issue. I mean, that putting basically $30-$40 worth of gas in the cylinder and lock it there is quite a lot of money for anyone in this context. So yeah, what I'm going into is like that issue is that behavior that people have on the paid something for the future is very difficult, and just they prefer to pay small amounts even if it's expensive on the aggregate. So. And then that was like 4 years ago. So we've been improving all this, I think so, until has been a process of 3 years to really get the right pitch and the right amounts of balance between what we risk as a company in terms of capital to these people. I mean, that we invest in cylinders and then we expect to be paid back over time, and that really seeing the results, that the uptake of the consumption and so on. So yeah, once the key hurdle is really having access to the device and to the kit, basically the cooking kit. They use it 1 or 2 days and then they can really embrace it. I mean, that's why we see a big retention rates. So yeah, it's still early days for us. I mean, we need to do massive manufacture of these meters to be cost effective and reduce our price points.
So, and take me through that. So the meter, sits somewhere along the gas train, from the cylinder to the cooking site so that it turns it on and off to provide access. And the mobile money solution, I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. When they top up, the meter is probably, I'm going to assume it's notified through SMS or something like that. Is that correct?
Right. So the meter, it sits on top of the cylinder, and the cylinder has a valve. So the cylinder cannot be removed without our authorization. So it has connectivity inside the meter. So if we send the order to open it, it can be opened. As well, it has safety measures and a valve that opens and closes the gas flow. So when people pay us, I mean, the valve is open. When the credit is finished, the valve closes. So it's a stick and the carrot in the system. Mm-hmm. So in itself, the credit is inside the meter. So a big thing that we are doing basically is removing the cylinder out of the picture. Because, in the normal traditional way cylinders are distributed, you cannot see the content of it. I mean, it's very heavy. And actually, there are very bad practices in the industry where you don't get the amount of gas you're paying for in your cylinder. And because it's small margins, high volumes business, so everyone wants to scratch a bit of margins over it. Mm-hmm. And so with this technology, basically, the meter we are kind of a sort of a utility. So the meter has a credit that the user wants to put it. And then it's our responsibility to switch the cylinders. So we also need to have this distribution network that we are building as well, where basically are shops in the proximity of these houses, walking distance, who are the ones responsible for changing the cylinder. Like one cylinder lasts between 4 to 6 weeks in a normal case. So someone affiliated to us is going to the houses and replacing those cylinders. So for us, all this is getting a lot of, on top of gaining those customers, is producing a lot of data about how to improve our logistics. So that's the logistics part of the company.
I was just going to say, tell me about that side of the company. I just think,
Yeah.
So are you maintaining a development team in order to continually improve the meter? Or, I see that Andron, your co-founder, he's got supply chain logistics, experience. So you've got this whole supply chain sort of piece of your business. Is this all, digital driven? I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Is this all happening in sort of automated systems? Is that where you're moving, or is this still sort of people hand keying information, or where are you at in that stage right now?
Yeah, so we are building, the original idea of KopaGas was to do this, digitalize really the LPG value chain. So yeah, the process starts, and it's different between countries to countries, but there is one big company that does the bottling that is sitting in the Dar es Salaam port. So we need to get all those cylinders and to bring them to our warehouse. And then from our warehouse, we need to distribute to around 600 sell points in the city, which is a small corner shops. Basically, they buy 10 to 20 cylinders. But we need to be very constant refilling them, resupplying them. And then we have the end customer with the meters. We can provide those refills, basically, to change those cylinders. So it's very quickly a lot of logistics. So we also have a big part where we monitor our vehicles, GPS, and we have a special EPRs, software tools to monitor all that. And we want to become cashless really company, because it makes sense. These vehicles distributing gas to the point of sale bring a lot of cash in hand, and it's dangerous actually. So, So actually the value added to be that the mobile money is so easy here is a key value, and it's something that makes us more efficient, and so on we can pass some benefits to the end user. So yeah, we are in charge of that whole maneuvering of bringing cylinders to the houses.
The lift that you guys have chosen to try to overcome. I'm just trying to put together. First, you've got LPG, which is, you're dealing with an explosive, essentially. This is a fuel, this is an accelerant. You're dealing with logistics. You've got, you've got tech solutions, in the thing. Like, even any one of these would be a heavy lift for an organization. When you guys were sketching it out on the back of a napkin, 4 years ago, was everybody just like, yeah, like this is obviously makes sense? Or, what would have been some of, does the company look anything remotely like what you thought 4 years ago, or has it evolved completely into a different thing?
No, of course not. Yeah, it's been a completely different thing. However, one of the key things is that part of the team, the technology team within the company, we were part of another venture in the past doing electricity smart meters. So really the metering technology has been something that we knew, and we know how to approach it, basically. Okay. Mm-hmm. But what key lesson was that, the infrastructure to distribute the cylinders was not there. So that's why we needed to basically get a license, start with a small vehicle and testing all these costs to bring in AV and then start from really small operation. What has been interesting, and it's really, we get to a right time where the price of gas has been historically low, because around the world there is a big production of gas, especially the U.S.
I was just going to say, all the fracking in the U.S. is just that has not been nice.
The shale revolution in the U.S. it has been a big helper on this. So there is a oversupply of gas worldwide. So there is a lot of, the only markets in the world that will grow are some in Southeast Asia, like around the area you are, and Africa really. All the other big markets are really shrinking because population is not growing. So that was a key thing. So we enter in this wholesale market where we capture this point of sale. So that has been a key critical thing for the financials of the company. And then the technical side of things, we are very lucky that there are very brilliant Tanzanian engineers and developers that have really key specific knowledge about mobile money. Interactions with the operators and so on. So, and also has been really, the building blocks for all this are more accessible today than 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. Really, that's a big key changer. We do maintain a small team of 2 people in China to get all this supply chain for manufacturing the meters. So yeah, we've been building it organically as we need, and so the logistic part was not in the sketch. Our idea was we're gonna produce the meters and sell them to someone, but those someone are not there yet. I mean, they don't exist.
Well, that's okay. So that's great. You kind of led me into my next question, which is, what kind of partnership or opportunities have you explored with the electricity system or the water system or the telecoms or mobile money providers? Like, are those opportunities there in order to hand off this logistics? Or, I mean, you're literally creating a gas utility here, and so maybe that's where the real money is. I don't know. Maybe that's where the huge value add is.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, the big challenge is logistics for rural operations. I mean, it's very expensive, whatever you do to bring things from one place to another. And Tanzania is really huge. I mean, it's most of the population, it's in rural areas, but it's vastly dispersed. So yeah, the key growth areas are the cities. And then Tanzania port also is like a big gateway to the lake countries like Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda. So it's a key. So there are specific routes. So if you compare it to the grid, basically we're going to follow a lot of that path. I mean, the major urban cities, we need to follow that. But so as really the financial muscle to do all this infrastructure deployment, gets there and people are more excited about the industry. I think so there is a key thing. For example, we have a partner where they are building a mini grid and we are providing the gas for the backup generator. So it's still very small scale example, but I think that's something that could be a big synergies with rural operations. It's harder not to crack because households there spend less. I mean, they spend time to fetch wood or charcoal, but they do spend money, but they don't say it as vivid as the people in the cities, that they don't have any other option. So it's a transition. And the thing is that Dar es Salaam really will grow into the largest city in East Africa. So it's a big, I mean, we are even growing, the pace that we're growing is not even catching up with the newcomers to the city and so on. So that's a big challenge. Yeah.
So now that, you've got these challenges that you put on the table, obviously those are things that you want to solve in the near term. What's the 5-year milestone that you guys are looking at? Is it revolutionizing the meter again, continually evolving that so that it operates in a different way? Is it maybe changing your business model? Is it doing, looking at how do we create, sort of these mini grids? Like what, as you guys think of your vision, where are you going?
So our vision is really to accelerate this transition to LPG. We want to be an important player into that. So part of the strategy is to demonetize this or reduce the cost of this meter as much as possible. So there is something very interesting for the normal LPG companies. They need to overinvest in number of cylinders because, like you have one cylinder in your house, might be not full or not, and you won't replace it so quickly. So there is a lot of inefficiencies along the lines. For example, here we are seeing that every customer, we need to have like 4 or 5 cylinders. So if you have a meter that is cheap enough, basically you can reduce that waste of cylinders, investment on cylinders that are redundant, and then you can make it more, you really know where is the asset, so you can control more about the finance, reduce the risk basically. So our vision is that thousands and thousands of small SMEs in Africa will do this distribution operation. So we want to be a key provider of the technology for making their business more successful.
Is this something where you can also, sorry for sort of thinking out loud here, but I'm thinking here in Bangkok and other places in Africa that I've been or other places, communities are being built. Like, it's no longer just one house here, one house there, but, there's development coming in where there's a design and, they're putting whole communities together. Is there an opportunity for you to say, okay, look, you're about to build 100 houses. Yeah. Can you be a part of that and say, let's just, let's put the pipes in or something like that?
Right. Actually, yes, that's a key thing. So first of all, the cylinders are cheaper than pipes. So putting a pipe under the ground is very
that's
expensive.
interesting.
Needed to be water or gas. So to give you a sense, like I mentioned, I'm from Mexico, but only 10% of the population has piped gas in Mexico, which is a relatively high-income country compared to sub-Saharan Africa. So it's very expensive.
That's it.
So,
I just got schooled. I had no idea. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but having, for example, bottling facilities that are safe, that are in good shape, can reduce a lot of the cost. And really, that's kind of the distributed future that is similar to solar, basically, that you don't need to have a heavy infrastructure. And the thing is how Brazil, all Latin America, and many Asian countries are doing it. I mean, even Japan has 60% of their heating and cooking needs are through cylinders, basically. So it's an easy way to do it. So yeah, more interaction with that basic infrastructure, and then really this revolution about data, that is cheaper and cheaper to track things, is really key for the industry.
I was going to say, I have to assume, again, I don't mean to think for you, but I can see the predictive analytics in this would be immensely important, and understanding how, if you can be predictive about when a cylinder is going to go empty, or when demand is going to go up or when it's going to go down, these kinds of things. I assume that's in the mix for the future as well.
Right. That's part of the big things. We need first to have 100,000 of these units everywhere. But yeah, that's a key value, and that is very humble, the cylinder now. So we are really making it more for the 21st century.
I have to figure out some way to capture that. You just called the cylinder humble. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Has the government in Tanzania, I can see the Ministry of Energy, assuming that there's a Ministry of Energy there. Have they, have their eyebrows kind of perked up and said, this is an interesting thing? Or what's your interaction there? Is that an issue?
Even the Ministry of Environment, they are really putting an agenda against charcoal, because, Tanzania is very rich in these natural resources. The tourist industry is very big. So around Dar es Salaam areas, the supply areas for charcoal to the city are really devastated, basically. It's a massive operation to cut trees and transform into charcoal. So they are very sensitive to do something about it. They probably are not so vocal about LPG to propose it, but something that is happening also in Tanzania, they have reserves of gas that will be developed in the next couple of years. So that also will reduce the cost of the fuel itself. So yeah, it's interest, but it's still compared to electrification, cooking energy is less sexy. So a lot of people.
I don't know. You just called the cylinder humble. I think that you guys can make it sexy.
Yeah. That's part of the thinking behind it. So yeah, and it's actually a less of an investment required, because it's just extending these grids or really even doing these off-grid solutions. There's still quite a lot of investment per household. You're talking $300 per household for any electricity project. Whereas you can basically, if the government is serious about this, they can do it basically for less than $50 per household. So yeah, there is a big thing to the government to do a big push. Brazil is a big example of how they just finance the sector and then make everyone to use cylinders, basically. But I think the technology is a key thing to make it more effective and efficient, and attract the private sector, really, because it's you can really see how take a risk. You can really control an area and see and balance your risk appetite, really, by knowing what is going on.
So speaking of risk appetite,
one key thing.
Oh, go ahead. You tell me one key thing.
A thing that happens in the sector is that, for example, whoever invests in cylinders wants to make sure is there gas going into those cylinders. Whereas today, in many places, you cannot guarantee that. There is a lot of illegal refilling in some market. So basically, you cannot recover investment because your gas is never going into your own cylinders, because you cannot track it, basically.
Yeah, I get that. You've put the problem in perspective, right? I've seen these cylinders all over the world, like many of the listeners have, and it's never really dawned on me that is a key attribute, for a company who owns those cylinders, that they need to be able to track that. That's really interesting. What I was going to ask, when you were talking about taking a risk was, 4 years ago, was this you and your co-founder and some other people, you kind of pulled money out of your back pocket and said, all right, we're going to get this thing started, or did you find outside investment? Because there's a lot of money you had to put on the table to get this going.
Yeah. We were lucky to get this license to operate as well. So yeah, we invested. Luckily, we've been in good careers, so we have enough to put into the system. And we also got traction from GSMA, which is a telecom association, that they really want to bring new services through the mobile phones. So this was a critical one, and very new one. So that also helped a lot to sort out all the technical issues with the operators. Yeah, and we're in the process to get more venture capital. So we're going to be okay for the next couple of years on that side.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Sebastian, I always end these conversations with two questions. And
Right.
The first question I have for you is, who do you pay attention to? I mean, you're an innovator. You're out there, you clearly chose a unique problem to solve. And you guys, so as far as we can tell, are kicking ass and taking names. Who do you pay attention to stay relevant? Are there Twitter feeds? Are there blog posts? Are there magazines? I mean, obviously you listen to your customers, but are there other
Right.
sources of information you use to stay current and stay, wow, here's a new technology that might help us?
Right. I use Twitter a lot. I like it. It's nice to see the developments in finance, in all these. Our peers in the off-grid sector are really very ahead on the innovation they're doing to finance all these assets. So, that's really key. A nice group of people to watch and get inspired all the big work they're doing. I'm also very excited about the role like China has. We couldn't have done it without the people we have in China, and how we can really leverage that. China as an innovation center, as a kind of be a big part of this puzzle. And then, and I have like a motivation of seeing this expanding from Africa to other locations, like a more south to south expansion. I'm Mexican. I wish to have like the same level of infrastructure in terms of more money and everything we can do here in Mexico. But it's not there yet, it's also that kind of opportunities that raise around it. So I think it's getting easier and easier. This innovation is hard, of course, to find the cash to finance it.
Sure.
We are lucky that we have like a kind of a normal business producing money, and then that's why we can put some money into the development. But yeah, I would say, all these factors is something that is taken my attention a lot.
Sure. So my last question is there something outside the gas business, a new innovation, a process, a technology, a thing, a shiny new object? Is there something that you think is just super cool and, you'd like to give a shout out to it because, it needs some more attention?
Yeah, I mentioned that, like how to profile the credit of customers. We are really in a way interacting for the first time formally with many of them. So ways to make it more efficient. Something like cryptocurrencies is interesting to observe and watch, whatever it means in the next few years as a tool, basically as a software, as a technology. Yeah, and then all these aspects that off-grid electrification is really key. Part of the reason I'm in Africa initially was the electrification business. So I love to see all these developments with new batteries, new technologies that are really demonetizing this energy infrastructure, which, that's basically my two wishes to they come quickly to the real world.
Sebastian, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Steven.
You've been listening to the Terms of Reference podcast from Aidpreneur.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes.